God tells the man that the magic kingdom is full and no new members are accepted. The warrior tells him not to be stubborn because if the thunder comes, he will die. He practiced hard for 300 years to ascend to immortality. A practitioner in the tribulation period. By Shu. The little boy is serious, saying that at this moment no one will stop him. God was enraged at the insolence of the young man. He rushed towards the supreme being with an arrow. Like fiery electricity, he's hurtling upwards. "And if God prevents me, I will kill the gods too!" bellowed the young man, determined to fight a fierce battle. His power, like a flame, spreads far away toward the opponent who hinders him. God did not expect such a force that cut him in half. It's a tongue of flame headed for the heavens. After defeating the Almighty, the guy sees what he's always wanted. "Here I am, Magic Kingdom," says the warrior, flying far above. Two men beat up a guy, accusing him of daring to steal their brother Hu's woman in a desire to try swan meat. Bai Shu wonders, is this the magic realm? One of the bastards says they'll let him go if he sucks his dick. The arrogant jerk was angered by the guy's silence. Shu feels that there are no spiritual energy fluctuations in this bastard's body, which means it's definitely not the magic realm. He left a flying kick to the side of his face. Holding back the bastard's fist, Bai Shu asks if he's done. The bully didn't realize the origin of the sudden bloody power. With one knee strike, the asshole went flying backwards. His buddy was sick of this turn of events. "You dare to resist, asshole? I'll teach you a lesson!" shouts the second bastard, wanting to settle accounts with Shu, who, seeing the spiritual power, thought about the fact that he couldn't use it himself. The jerk rushes towards the already beaten guy, shouting that he's about to learn the true power of superpowers. Lee doesn't react in any way, and still stands there calmly. He was pierced like an arrow by the word superpowers. Bai Shu dodged the blow, causing the bastard to fly forward. He might have lost his spiritual power, but with this level of ability, he definitely couldn't defeat him. The guy's giving the bastard a kick in the chin. From the super strong blow, the jerk bounced from wall to wall and flew off somewhere to the side. Shu stalks his opponent, flying at him with a swinging leg kick. The next moment, on their knees, the bastards apologize to him, saying they were wrong and begging him not to hurt them. One shouts to the other that this idiot Li Jiang should be reported to the boss as soon as possible, because he might have awakened his superpowers. Like dogs with their tails between their legs, they run away after their defeat. From hearing the phrase, the red-eyed young man remembered the name. The owner of this body is named Li Jian. He lost his parents when he was still a child and was adopted by his mother's friend, Liu Yiran. As a result of being demobilized at a young age, he developed a condition called autism, which made him the subject of ridicule. It seems that intentionally dissecting the sky didn't help one to rise up, but rather made one turn into a mortal and enter this strange world. And the power that Guy used is called superpower, and most people in this world awaken it within themselves. But the owner of this body is an exception. I don't know if the true owner can cultivate immortality using the body. The young man logically pondered after realizing everything that had happened. A girl with pink hair comes running to him, alarmed that the guy is being bullied again. She asks him to run away if he can't fight. Otherwise, he will get hurt. It was Ji Qi, the daughter of Li Jian's foster mother, who helped him every time he was bullied. Applying recovery magic, the girl says that her mom will be worried if she finds out about it. Those two bullied the guy because of Li Jian being close to her. From the owner's memories, it seems that every time the guy was hurt, Ji Qi used superpowers to heal him. It turns out superpowers have their own attributes too. Finished recovering, the girl was glad that he wasn't badly hurt this time. Otherwise, with her powers, she would definitely have to go to the hospital for a while. The young man pondered on the fact that in his mind, superpowers could be considered magic to him. She gave him a flick asking why he was silent. "How can ordinary mortals hurt me?" Bai Shu asks Ji Qi. She thinks autism has become schizophrenia, and the guy notices that she looks down on him. The girl grabbed the young man's hand and led him home, telling him that his mother was already waiting for them. This world is completely different from the old world of Shu, with endless tall buildings built in rows. There's also a transportation called a car that can easily travel hundreds of miles. All people of different ages dress poorly, exposing skin, though it violates etiquette. It seems to be a release from yet another shackle of his world's past. And superpowers are the power that dominates this world. Bai Shu doesn't know the aura of this world, and whether cultivators will be affected by superpowers. The road ahead is indeed not an easy one to recreate another world, But even though it will be difficult, Shu will still achieve his longtime wish of ascension. East Street, a 08 neighborhood. Jiki talks about them finally coming home. Someone nervously asks what a girl is doing here. The guy wondered who could have scared her like that. A man in patent white shoes stands in front of them. Ji Changtian, Jiki's father. The girl asks what the father is doing here. He replies that he came because he was talking to his mother about an important topic. Liu Yiran yells to get out of her house to Ji Changtian. The father wanted to touch his daughter, but she shouted at him not to touch him. Bai Shu is watching. With his head held high, he walks away past Shu, reminding her that she's not going anywhere from him. Ji Changtian, Jiki's father, had an affair with his wife, so they reconciled, and eventually, so did Jiki. But he interfered a lot and controlled the lives of Liu Ran and her daughter. However, there is no information about this in Li Jian's memory. However, the appearance of this freak doesn't bode well, so Shu fears that there will be a lot of trouble in the future, so it's worth cultivating as soon as possible. The guy doesn't understand what's going on in the world. He'd like to learn more. Unexpected, but you have to practice first. Bai Shu hoped that the true owner of the body would be able to cultivate immortality with his spiritual essence, introducing ki into the body and nourishing one's spirit with the spirit of heaven. Ancient spirit is a technique created by a name in a past life. It can condense absorbed spiritual energy to make its sphere more durable, and it becomes more crushing when it encounters immortal cultivators of the same sphere. Shu notices that the aura of this world is very thin, and even with the help of ancient spiritual energy, she can only condense 3 spiritual powers. Ki penetrates the muscles and veins, quenches the will, supports the nature, and strengthens the spirit. To achieve immortality, one must persevere, no matter how difficult. This feeling is the very rare body that is the inherent body of the Tao. The spiritual energy is so subtle that Bai Shu can practice it in the blink of an eye, but still, he has reached the 5th level of ki refinement. The girl distracted the guy from attaining spiritual energy by falling to the ground practically in front of his feet. Drunken bastard says sis has nowhere else to run and he wants her to play with her little brother. Lying on the ground, she asks for help from a guy sitting on a bench. Freak, calling Shu a kid, orders him to go about his business. Turns out there are bastards everywhere, thought the red-eyed young man, looking at the insolent pervert. The idiot was angered by the boy's silence and, saying a phrase that Bai Shu had already heard in the past day, that the boy had asked for it, and now he would learn the power of level 2 abilities. The red-eyed youth noticed that it was a thunder attribute. He wants to try out the results of today's cultivation. The electric lightning under Shu's gaze turned into ice. The bastard is surprised that his thunder and lightning didn't even hit the boy. He realized his superpowers were greater than his. Only short-sighted imbeciles would focus on so-called levels, says the young man, preparing to deliver a critical blow to the face of the freak, who immediately chickened out, begging to discuss everything first. Another powerful kick in the ass to another motherfucker. Falling to the ground, the body gave out its breath. Bai Shu comments that you can't get rid of everything with superpowers. The girl who had been spared from the coming non-mutual torment snuggled up against his back, wrapping her arms around him. She sniffs it and talks about how it has a nice body odor. Shu noticed that the girl's circulation was too strong and assumed that someone had drugged her with illegal drugs. He apologized in advance and turned to face her, grabbing her hand. The red-eyed young man made presses at certain points, and the girl at that moment was getting unbearable pleasure and excitement from what was happening. The illegal drugs have dissolved, so after a cup of tea, the girl should wake up. Someone turns to Bai Shu in anger, calling him a bastard and ordering him to move away from his sister. Gu Tianyu, 3rd level of ability. Remaining calm, the red-eyed young man noticed another superpower. I'll kill you! Gu Tianyu shouts, rushing towards Shu with that angry guy's sister. He threw the stupefied girl down on the bench. Too slow for a young man. Although his cultivation level is no higher than the 5th level of ki refining, but the guy doesn't need any magic in order to deal with people with low levels of superpowers. And after saying that it would be enough, he threw Tianyu's back into the tree. Losing his strength after being hit so hard, Gu exhaustedly fell flat on the ground. Shu stepped on his head. The red-haired guy saw how fast the red-eyed young man was, so fast that he couldn't reflect his blows at all. The boy thinks that Bai is from a top academy. Did you just say you wanted to kill me? Shu asks, looking with his bright red eyes into the eyes of this stricken poor freak. Rising to his knees, the red-headed guy says he can humiliate him, But don't touch his sister. He's starting to fume with anger. Bai Shu noticed that the man wanted to do some kind of gimmick. Thanks to his lightning-fast reaction, the young man jumped aside from the fiery explosion. Blazing Guy says that he may not be proficient enough in the technique, but his strength is enough to straighten out the red-eyed young man. The barrier field of the body's inherent Tao could weaken all strikes within a certain range, so this level of flame wouldn't even come close to Shu. Gu Tianyu sees that his flame doesn't take the guy. He thinks that the man's superpower is the earth element, but immediately dismisses the thought, because he doesn't seem to have any superpowers at all. He asks Bai Shu who he is, but the sane and calm man says to think of himself, for his blood is boiling and his heart is failing. "You're about to blow yourself up," says the red-eyed young man Gu. Tianyu notices how sick he has become. He got down on one knee, realizing that he couldn't take it anymore. Bai Shu lifted up the uncomprehending guy. The guy pokes at certain points on the body again. Gu is visibly feeling better. He thinks the long-haired young man is trying to save him. "You've just got it all wrong. I wanted to protect your sister, and I didn't intend to kill you at all," says Bai Shu, standing beside the sleeping maiden. The girl woke up and asked what her brother was doing here. She thanks him for saving her, and Gu Tianyu begins to realize the absurdity of the situation. The girl says she drank a spiked illegal drug in a bar and was molested by some guy. Bai Shu helped her. Her brother Tianyu seems furious, but at the same time puzzled by her sister's frivolity. Gu apologizes to the young man, but he doesn't care, and Shu turns around in the opposite direction, saying that since all misunderstandings are resolved, he'll go. Some bearded man laughs and says that the misunderstanding should have just been discussed. A man in black glasses and a strict suit stands next to him. The red-eyed young man asked who they were. This is their grandfather Gu Wen, accompanied by 2 guards. The grandfather looks a little fierce. "If it weren't for the help of our little buddy, my dear grandson would be exploding right now. Little buddy, may I invite you into my humble home and repay your help?" Wen asks Shu. Bai walks away saying he doesn't need anything. Although the old man is a researcher of superpowers, but he is also aware of the secrets of ancient monuments. Just now, our little buddy suppressed Tianyu's abilities with his bare hands. Shu's abilities are incredibly high, and his physical strength is similar to what Grandpa read about in books. Gu Wen wondered where the young man had learned this. There are absolutely no spiritual power fluctuations around this old man, and he's also sick, but he seems to be able to sense the changes in Shu's spiritual power. Grandpa wasn't easy. "Never mind," the red-eyed young man said, walking away. Gu Tianyu asked his grandfather about Bai Shu because his body and strength are quite extraordinary. The girl doesn't think it's weird. She thinks the guy who left is a sweetheart because he so easily stopped her brother's self-destruction and could probably cure Grandpa's leg problem. Gu Wen has forbidden spreading the word about what happened. He asks his grandson to get all the information about him. If Bai Shu is truly legendary, then the Gu family will prosper. Since school is starting, Aunt Liu has prepared a new uniform for the young man. Jiki resents the guy's behavior and thinks it's strange because he has a sudden politeness. Liu Yiran specially picked out Li Jianyu's clothes, and it took 3 months of payment. She had never even bought such expensive clothes for her daughter. Liu's family doesn't live richly, yet they can spend 3 months' salary to buy a new suit. It seems that the owner of the body is really a full-fledged member of the family. Liu Yiran tickles Jiki, saying he buys her stuff all the time. Sis yells for her brother to go try on a new suit. Bai Shu looks at this with a smile. "They treat me so well I should take the defense of this family on myself," thinks Shu, looking at the happy girls. Yajun University, an international aristocratic college with top-notch faculty and rich or noble students, where most teachers and students have superpowers. The girl holding Bai Shu's hand says that a person relies on clothes and a horse relies on the saddle. He looks much cuter in his new clothes. The brother and sister hear a conversation about their high school hottie, Ji Ki, who can be slept with by this idiot. The original Li Jian has no strength at all, and thanks to Ji Qi's help, he has the opportunity to attend college and even become an auditor. But Shu would never have thought that because of his illness, he could become an object of ridicule for those strong kids. The 2 bastards head towards the brother and sister, calling Bai Shu a fool. The pink-haired girl wants to take her brother away so she doesn't get into an altercation with the freaks, but the red-eyed young man won't budge. "Don't think that if you dress normal, we'll treat you like a normal person," says the leader of the bully gang, Chung Hu. His henchmen were beaten up by Bai Shu last afternoon so badly that they came in covered in band-aids. Chen Hu, a rather influential person in this school. Because of his failed attempts to get close to Ji Qi, he often pestered the real Li Jian for being close to her. Grabbing Bai Shu by the collar, the bastard says it's time to settle the score. The young man, looking fiercely into the freak's eyes, orders his filthy hands away from him. Grabbing his wrist, practically twisting his arm, he repeated his words. The gang leader, when Shu let go of his arm, began to scream in pain, holding himself up by his bluened arm. The bastard's minions shout that the idiot doesn't care about life at all since he dared to touch Brother Hu. Since he has a level 5 ability, they promise an extravaganza. The girl wondered, for she found it strange that Li Jian had become so strong. The cultivation system is divided into 8 levels. The initial level of abilities is divided into 9 levels, the rest into 3 stages: high, medium, and low. The 5th level ability is equivalent to the 5th level of key refining cultivation. However, the red-eyed youth doesn't know how strong the abilities at this level are. The gang leader is outraged that the paralytic has become so powerful. His rat followers assume that the fool has awakened his powers, since he gave them a good thrashing last time. They ask their boss to be more careful. The angry leader of the dogs believes that a fool who awakens abilities is still a fool. As if let off the leash, the bastards ran towards Bai Shu. If he dared to mess with the boss, he threatened to kill him. The girl covers Shu's back with hers, reminding her that they are on the private grounds of an educational institution where such behavior will not be tolerated. The freak shouts that Brother Hu's father is one of the managers of this college, so he himself is in charge. At this moment, he flies his fist forward towards Ji Qi. Bai Shu pulled the girl by her waist towards him, causing the bastard to miss. With one swing, the red-eyed young man kicked the freak in the balls. Ji Qi still wondered how her brother had so much power. She thought about Chen Hu's words because maybe he was right, and Li Jian had really awakened his superpowers. She spotted a rat behind Shu's back that was ready to strike and yelled to be careful. The bastard brags that he was able to awaken crystal energy last day, so he promises to paint the red-eyed boy's face. Bai Shu wanted to hit the freak from his elbow, but the freak vaporized and only a silhouette of light remained. The idiot, in a teasing sort of way, shouts that he's completely on the other side. Intriguingly, the method of using wind to move around is similar to the initial wind control skill. But this, unfortunately, is only superficial. After calculating the bastard's flight path, the red-eyed young man easily caught up to him as if gravity meant nothing to him. From one punch from Bai Shu, Doggy does a backflip, and he clearly won't land on his ass. Chen Hu called his companions complete idiots and thought it was better to do everything himself, because he could handle what he thought was a paralytic. The bastard applies a glowing punch, then blinds the girl that Bai Shu is holding on to. As a young Wanjin master, he had already awakened superpowers since he was a child, and now he could use a shining lancer with powers far superior to the same level of strikes. Chen Hu believes that fighting a brainless person like Li Jian, who has only awakened his power, is as easy as crushing an ant. Bai Shu easily left his punch behind, touching the bastard's fist with his index finger. Chen Hu doesn't understand how he is doing this, why this idiot's aura has suddenly become so strong. He sees the red-eyed guy as a monster. There's nothing left of the courage and bravery that was pouring out of that asshole's mouth. The asshole falls on his ass like he's just been pushed. Chen Hu shouts that it's impossible because his radiant strike can only be stopped by level 6 abilities, and Li Jian had only awakened his abilities. Bai Shu, without slowing down to reply, simply referred to ordinary experience. This bastard's level 5 superpowers greatly disappoint the red-eyed guy. He promised to protect the Liu family, and creatures like him should know their place. Shivering in fear, the already former boss of some gang sits on his ass and asks what Li Jian is up to, for he knows who this guy is. Kneading his wrist, Bai Shu tells him to listen to him and watch his words and actions from this day forward. The college students start shaming the gang for being humiliated by some fool. They're glad he's been taught a lesson and will know his place. From that moment on, the students think Li Jian is a cool, handsome guy. Mr. Poopy Pants lies beaten, with a tooth knocked out next to him in tattered clothes. He's not showing any signs of life. Ji Qi noticed that Li Jian had indeed gotten his superpowers. She was so happy that he could fight back against others, for which she gave him a kiss. Strip bar, sexy girls dancing on a pole. One of the dogs ran to the real boss and reported back. He called them losers. What's the point of them then? The little boy, trembling with fear, asks Mr. Wanjin Chen Xiao to spare him. Using his abilities, the boss put out his cigar on the bastard's forehead. Chen Xiao tells his subordinate that his son was the only one who could humiliate someone. However, now Chen Hu has been humiliated. So he sends his subordinate to go and find out what's going on. Ren Wukong, an ideologue of superpowers, submits to his master and asks that the young master's problem be given to him. Don't get too worked up. I let him personally experience the effects of Wanjin's provocation, Chen Xiao says, taking a drag on a new cigar. Ji Qi walks with her brother under her arm, saying that although Cheng Hu deserves to be punished, Li Jian was too cruel. The girl is worried because his family is quite powerful and that he might get into trouble because of it. The place called University contained much more spiritual energy than other places. With the dual blessings of the ancient spirit and the true Tao body, Bai Shu was able to reach the 7th level of qi refining in less than a month. And by focusing on it, he could easily reach the 9th level of qi refining. Jia Qi distracts him from his musings by asking if he's listening to her at all. The red-eyed young man, realizing that he wasn't listening to what the girl was saying, says that this is a cool place. Ji Qi is stunned by his answer and thinks it's the end, as his condition keeps getting worse. Bai Shu noticed something. Glass shatters near him. He protects the girl from the shards flying in the air. He activates his superpowers by helping other people. People started running away in panic to escape what was happening. Sis notices a wound on her brother's face, but he replies that he's fine. Dispersing spiritual energy to protect others allowed this attack to break through the true Tao body. Ren Wukong was interested in the young man, for a man with newly awakened superpowers was able to repel his attack. Bai Shu spoke to the stranger who managed to injure him. Ji Qi asks him, addressing him as Li Jian, not to waste time on Chiunibyo, for he is still a manipulator. The red-eyed young man only thinks of an aura comparable to a 9th level qi refinement. He has finally found a worthy opponent. Are you pretending to be like this, or are you really a fool? Think carefully. Didn't you touch something you shouldn't have touched? Even though Master asked me to be more careful, but I definitely don't intend to hold back. Ren Wukong shouts, turning to Shu. The young man, as if handcuffed around his torso, levitates. The girl is dumbfounded by what is happening. To the red-eyed boy, the technique seemed very familiar. Chiunibyo slammed his torso against the concrete wall. Having found a target of amusement, Wukong wants to finish off Bai Shu. Stones rain down on the boy's body. Ji Qi calls the bastard who killed her brother. Ren tells the girl not to scream. Even though the Lord doesn't need her, the freak doesn't mind feeling more blood on his hands. After climbing out from under the rubble, Bai Shu flies towards the bastard, calling his actions in an interesting MO. Ren Wukong didn't understand how he had managed to survive, and he was extremely curious about what kind of superpowers the fool had been able to awaken in him. Shu activated another vision ability. He sees the hands of death being wielded by his opponent. There were disciples in Tiantong's group that used these techniques. They spread by the sky and attacked with ki power. Back then, they were considered strong. If you use your old tricks again, you can't hurt me, says the young man with a fierce look. He destroys those skeletal arms with ease. Wukong doesn't think this is possible. He doesn't understand how the latter was able to defeat his shadowless, and yells for the one to attack her. A huge amount of boulders once again flew towards Bai Shu. Ling Yue sword technique, 4 kinds. Like a laser, it got rid of those rocks in seconds. And so, Bai Shu rushed towards his opponent in his fiery original guise. He easily defeats superpower ideologue Ren Wukong. The bastard thinks he was defeated by a newly awakened idiot. Bai Shu names the real reason why this jerk lost. He has good skills, but lacks the knowledge of how to develop his body. The red-eyed guy managed one armature in the hand he held behind his back. So there lies the loser on the ground. Bai Shu noticed that he was trying to put his sword into the scabbard out of habit. But it was an armature, and he was in a different world. Realizing the awkwardness of the situation, he remembered that this world was not like the immortal world he had known before. Ji Qi ran up to her brother, who himself had fun saying that such weaklings couldn't injure him, but he scared the hell out of her. This isn't the end if you insult Wanjin. The master will definitely make your life a living hell, threatens the defeated opponent. Sis hopes they won't provoke any powerful people, and she wondered who the Wanjin gang was. Gu Tianyu, with his sister and guards approaching the scene, said that he would like to see who here dared to touch his Gu family. Ren Wukong goes into even more shock at what he hears. Tianyu's sister jumps into Bai Shu's arms, calling the latter a hero who has made quite the search for him. This behavior makes Ji-ki jealous. The girl is still enjoying Shu's flavor as well. The red-eyed young man recognizes the brother and sister he saved that time, but doesn't understand what they are doing here. Ji-ki irritatedly asks who this girl is. Calling her sister, she introduces herself as Gu Tianjin, the hero's friend. Shu's sister jealously asked why she didn't know about his cute girlfriend then. He pushes the ponytailed girl away, saying he doesn't know anyone. This offends Tianjin. Tianyu called his sister over and asked her not to molest the master. "I'm naive and uneducated, so I hope you don't mind," Brother Gu says, bowing to the entire group. Ren Wukong has fallen out from such events, so much so that his lower jaw almost touches the ground from surprise. The Gu family is very famous. Their influence extends to many fields, including military, economic, political, and scientific. They are unrivaled in Kangking City. Even the local inspector in charge of the law has to coordinate with the Gu family. Wen Jin is no match for them. The Gu family, who runs everything, respects Li Jian, which Ren doesn't believe. But Li Jian acted so dismissively, as if he didn't care about the Gu family at all. Wukong screams that this is impossible. Bai Shu noticed that his opponent wasn't complacent and swept up his desire to fight to the end. As if in an epileptic fit, hitting his head on the slab, Ren Wukong begged for Mr. Li's mercy, because he didn't do all this intentionally. He blamed it all on Chen Xiao since he gave the orders. The pathetic weirdo begs for understanding and mercy. The young man found out that Chen Xiao was Chen Hu's father. He didn't expect their personal squabbles to reach the point of using his family's power. Before, Chen Xiar was just a dog that Uncle Li An was raising. And after leaving the Gu family to earn money, he decided to put together some kind of gang? Why would I even believe him? Please leave it to me, sir. It's time for me to learn from my mistakes regarding our family's dear guest, Tianyu says majestically. Bai Shu leaves it up to them. The red-eyed youth threatened Wukong. If he dares to chase him or Ji-ki in the future, let him be prepared to answer for it. The little dog, tail tucked, understood the words and ran away. Sis doesn't understand what's going on and asks her brother about the Gu family. Is it true that they are really from that powerful family? Tianyu wants to invite the young man to Gu's house to express his gratitude about that situation. Bai Shu refuses because the Gu family is so powerful that he could have done nothing that day. Nothing would have happened to Gu Tianjin anyway. Trying to stop the red-eyed boy, the red-haired boy asks the gentleman to consider his offer. Tianjin asks Shu, "My hero, please come with us, or the girl will swear." He pulled her by the waist closer to him. She, getting excited by such actions, asks the guy what he is going to do. Shu reaches a hand to her chest. He does something about it. Ji-ki is shocked by his brother, and Tianyu realizes that even a master can't resist worldly temptations. He took off her pendant, a treasure of the earth. Gu's brother is disappointed because he imagined more than he saw. The girl thinks it's as if he's been sick again, and has suddenly taken a sudden interest in some strange little pebbles. Tianjin said it was her grandfather's ancient collection. It drives away evil spirits and nourishes the soul. If her character is interested in it, she asks, come to their house. Her grandfather has a lot of treasures. Bai Shu thinks that her grandfather must really know something about cultivating immortality, and he could definitely use some heavenly treasures that can help. So it's better to go and check it out. Thinking logically, he agreed. They arrived at Gu's luxurious estate. The guests, escorted by security guards, were invited to a sumptuously set table. Ji-ki admires this luxury, thinking that these nobles have some special rules of etiquette. My dear friend has traveled quite a distance to make my home shine. Please have a seat. Grandpa Gu invites the guest to the table. Getting to the point, the red-eyed youth asked where the thing that was around his granddaughter Tianjin's neck came from. He called the stone an item from a collection of old and dilapidated objects, and asked about something special about the item since it had caught Shu's attention. Bai concluded that since grandfather had such a huge collection of these things, he must surely know what was so special about them. Sis felt uncomfortable with her brother's inhuman behavior. Noticing that the red-eyed boy knew exactly what he was talking about, Grandpa Gu laughed and invited him to evaluate the entire collection, to which Bai Shu agreed. Grandfather asked Tianjin and Tianju to take care of Miss Qi. Sis is worried, then Brother Gu calms the girl, assuring that grandfather will not harm the young man. If this old man isn't lying, then Bai Shu is afraid that there are too many magic treasures in this world for immortality cultivators. But these magical treasures are clearly not created by superpowers, then where did they come from? the young man wondered. They go down from the first floor to 4 below. Grandpa Gu invites the red-eyed young man to come with him. An aura wafts from the room, which interests Shu greatly. They walked into a huge hall. Gu Wen started coughing into his handkerchief. He's sick. The cloth shows traces of blood after coughing. Grandfather asks not to worry about it, calling it an old habit. The elderly man said they had come to the right place. Here is his entire collection, which he presented to his dear friend Bai Shu. With such a stockpile of magical treasures, there should be many immortality cultivators in this world. But somehow there wasn't a trace of it left here. Although, there are some weak superpowers that can't be displayed. You certainly have a lot of stuff, but the quality leaves a lot to be desired. Only little things that only a practitioner at the key foundation stage would be interested in, said the red-eyed youth in complete calmness. His words startled Gu Wen's grandfather. He has spent so much effort and energy on these treasures, but they have completely failed to attract Shu's attention. Grandpa thinks the boy is the one he wants. An elderly man says he can't please his children and is rather ashamed of it. He has another thing that he unfortunately doesn't know how to use. He wonders if his dear friend can figure it out. In the glass display case was a ring. The red-eyed youth realized that the aura he felt was coming from that ring. It's a cursed ring. Its peculiarity lies in its name. Anyone who touches this ring will go mad, or in the worst case, be burned alive by the black flames bursting from within. Bai Shu thinks that Gu Wen is testing him. Then the boy says it's not a curse at all, it's wuju. The precious exhibit, as if with a devil's eye instead of a stone, shattered the display case, flying towards the young man. Grandpa Gu is amazed that the boy knows the true name of the ring. The jewel, as if in obedience, swooped down on Shu's finger. The black flame that Wen spoke of surrounded the hand that wore the ring. Wen, having activated the protective barrier, asks his friend to wait. But he stopped because he noticed something. The flames don't touch Bai Shu at all. Li Jian is indeed the one Grandpa Gu has been waiting for. Wuju's ring is not a treasure at all, but it helps the young man a lot. It's a lot of work, but he must use it to his advantage. Shu entered the spiritual space inside the ancient ring. A three-headed hound of hell approaches him. In his previous life, the Lord had tried his best to subdue the three-headed dog from hell, but the boy never expected to meet him when he was reborn in another world. He was sorry that his cultivation was already exhausted, and only a part of his soul remained. The hound attacks the young man with black flames. A wild dog who has lost his body dares to use his spiritual consciousness against the boy. Bai Shu is offended that his consciousness has been compared to that of some beast. He orders them to sit. The three-headed hound stopped right in front of the young man. Shu approaches the ferocious beast. The red-eyed boy orders the dog to sit down and obey him. The god of death himself looms over him. The hound is afraid, for it senses and sees the aura of the approaching human. All that's left of the big three-headed dog is a three-headed puppy. Bai Shu, raising the beast, tells him to remember that he is now the master. And in case he dares to be disobedient, the young man promises something. "I'll just crush your soul," utters the red-eyed boy, looking into the eyes of the hound, who is clearly frightened by the phrase. Although the hellhound only had a soul left, it could use the Wuju ring to create a physical body with the same cultivation level as its master. If Bai Shu is strong, the hound will be even stronger, and he will definitely be useful to the guy in the future. Gu Wen turns to his dear friend, for he is indeed the person his grandfather was looking for. His Gu family is very happy, but suddenly, Grandpa's cough erupts with a lot of blood. His chair warns that his vital signs are not stable. He needs immediate medical attention. A young man tries to feel for a pulse on the radial artery of a weakened elderly man. Prolonged sickness and accumulation of sickness in the 5 meridians is definitely Shinren poison. Interestingly enough, disregarding the Gyu family's power, someone still dared to poison the head. Bai Shu is not concerned at all, but today, luck is on Gu Wen's side. In return for Wuju's ring, the boy will save his grandfather's life. The moment the superpower was applied, 2 men came running in. One of them was the son who was yelling for Shu to get away from his father. The other was a doctor. The doctor listens to Gu Wen, and the son suspects that Shu did something to his dad. The young man replies that he is saving a life. "You think I'm stupid? It's obvious you wanted to hurt an elderly person," accuses the bastard of the guy. The red-eyed young man thinks his son is an ignorant idiot. The grandchildren come running in, asking what happened to Grandpa and why the jerk is fighting with the gentleman. The uncle curses at them, for how can they call a brat a gentleman? The old man is so stupid, he says, that he believed the charlatan. Tianyu yells that he misunderstood everything, because Shu really isn't a bad person, but he believes more in what he sees. His father is more important now, and he'll deal with him when his grandfather is well. The red-eyed boy wonders how the man is going to treat his illness. The son asks Dr. Andrew to get to work, to which he replies that he will do his best. A healing superpower. He uses hydrotherapy. Controlling water in the body to treat internal damage is called water healing, but the poison has already penetrated the heart, so it's all useless. Gu Wen once again coughed up blood. Dr. Andrew apologizes to Mr. Gu because Grandpa's symptoms are too strange and his superpowers won't help here. He says to prepare for Gu Wen's funeral. Tianzin sat on her knees believing that Grandpa will be fine. Grandpa's son Wenya says it's not the doctor's fault. He keeps blaming Bai Shu. In his opinion, the brat must have done something to the elderly man while they were away. Sister Tianyu asks Uncle to stop talking like that. Since Dr. Andrew couldn't do anything, she asks to give the gentleman a chance. She really wants to save Grandpa. The bastard keeps accusing the red-eyed guy of hurting his grandfather. He's against the gentleman even touching him. Bai Shu talks about how they are wasting their time. Soon, no one will be able to help father anymore. You're too self-righteous. You have no right to say anything here. Mr. Andrew is the town's chief healer. He's never failed. And now all this happened because you did something to an old man. Angrily shouts the stupid freak. The boy says he's already prevented his father from being saved several times. He really doubts the young man's medical skills. But Shu is Nepali and tells his son that maybe he has some ulterior motives and is now deliberately stretching the time. Without responding to the point made, he called the guards to arrest the murderer. Calling them a bunch of idiots, he summoned a hellhound to play with the humans. The guards are only shocked that the young man has the superpower of summoning. They're terrified of it. Tianyu, looking at this, thinks that even he can't reach the beast summoning level. The savior is indeed unrivaled. He wonders who Shu really is. With fear, the bastard fell on his ass and asked the young man who he was. You better get nicer, or you won't be able to deal with the consequences, says, looking into the ugly man's eyes, a young man with devilish eyes. After a while, Gu Wen's condition worsened due to the lack of blood and qi. However, this was not a problem for Bai Shu. As long as the actual unreal conditions are combined and the meridians are stimulated, toxins can be eliminated from the body. The red-eyed guy uses the superpower of freezing. Magical sharp objects resembling needles appeared. The grandchildren are curious about what Shu is doing. Bastard says with a smile on his face that even if Grandpa can't be cured, he wonders what the guest can do. The needles were stuck into specific points on the elderly man's body. Dr. Andrew noted that this procedure is called Chinese acupuncture. Chinese acupuncture is one of the best medical techniques in the country. When used correctly, it can help unload meridians, strengthen the body, and eliminate evil. In modern times, superpowers are increasingly used in medicine, and ancient medical knowledge has been lost. Andrew's doctor had only heard of it. Still doing the procedure, Shu says there's a lot of information out there. The residue of poison accumulated in the vessels of the heart must be expelled. Release it with a burst of energy. A young man uses the power of his superpowers. Grandpa Gu Wen once again coughs up blood, but with a smaller amount. Running up to their grandfather, the grandchildren think the gentleman has failed. The bastard feels right. After all, he did say the boy couldn't cure him. An elderly man opens his eyes. Tianren and Tianju started hugging Gu Wen, saying that he scared the hell out of them. They are sobbing. Grandpa calms them down, saying that he is fine. Freak is shocked that Bai Shu was able to cure his father. The old man says it's the first time he's felt this good since he got sick. The elderly man thanks his dear friend. Shu replies that he was only able to save him because he was here. In the future, if someone poisons him again, the old man will only have to pray. Don't think you can say such a thing just because you cured your father. Who would do such a thing under the protection of the Gu family? Father's health deteriorated because of his research on superpowers. The bastard brazenly intrudes on the young man's speech, this time accusing him of lying. Shu said this out loud. The creep continues to slander the guy in that he was the one who hurt the Lord. The grandchildren then pondered over the red-eyed young man's words. Tianzani's uncle had always seemed a little strange, since Grandpa hadn't studied superpowers for a long time. Tianju noticed that Grandpa had always had health like an ox. Although in the early stages, he had problems with his legs due to superpowers, but Gu Wen had no other problems, and he started taking Uncle Demian's medicine, after which his health deteriorated. The bastard grabbed Tianyu by the collar, accusing some leftist of saying stupid nonsense, and he immediately began to doubt his uncle, not believing him. The grandson replied that he was only reasoning. Gu Wen takes out the medicine he was taking. He asks his son to try it out to prove his innocence. Demian then began to accuse his father of doubting his own son, accusing the red-eyed young man of setting him up. Well, since it's not poison, drink this. Bai Shu holds out the substance to the bastard. Gu Wen waits for a reply, to which he scolds his father for being so careless with the medicine. Dr. Andrew says that Mr. Gu reported that this medicine is created from various natural herbs, and it is safe for ordinary people if they drink it. Damien is angry about Li Jian because he set him up. He tells them to shut up, shooting the same man. Stopping the bullet in front of the doctor's face, Bai Shu says that such an action can be counted as an admission that the medicine is poisoned. Still threatening with the gun, Damien yells that there's nothing wrong with the cure and that the doctor set him up by poisoning the contents. Andrew says he wouldn't dare do such a thing. The red-eyed young man says the bastard won't give up until he sees the Yellow River. The guy used his superpower, knocking the weapon out of Damien's hands. The freak's left arm was covered in some abrasions. Everyone noticed that the uncle's arm looked unnatural. Dr. Andrew said it's not a birthmark, but a scar from the poison that eats away at the skin. When you came in, I noticed that your breathing was ragged. You poisoned Gulau's medicine with crushed red root. And over time, the poison has penetrated your skin as well. It's not fatal, but it can take several years of your life. Reports the red-eyed youth in absolute calm and confidence. Damien realized he was also poisoned and screams that he doesn't want to die. The bastard fell on his knees in front of Bai Shu, shouting that there are only a few people in China that can cure red root poison. He pitifully begs the master to help him. The elderly man grows fiercer with every word his son says. The young man kicked the wretched brat and told him to get the hell out of here. Out of desperation, the freak started begging his father, excusing himself by saying that he had made a huge mistake because of his obsession. He begs his father to forgive him. Gu Wen strokes his son's head, saying that he wanted to poison and kill his father as well as slander others. The grandfather informs him that Damien has no place in the Gu family. The bastard better go to the inspection and refresh his memory. The freak realized that savage torture awaited him. As security takes the bastard under his arm, he screams that the inspector's office is a subhuman place. Tianzin is upset by her uncle's action after all. She thought they were family. Tianyu tells her not to be sad. Luckily for them, the master happened to be here today. Otherwise, Grandpa wouldn't have been able to be saved. I'm sorry, dear friend. It was all that bad discipline that made you laugh. I'm feeling great now and would like to discuss something with you. Gu Wen addresses Bai Shu. He asks the young man about the origin of the Wuju ring. Gu Wen's office. The red-eyed boy sits at the desk with his grandfather. He holds out the pictures to him and asks him to look at them. Bai Shu recognizes the relics of cultivators in the images. When he was young, an elderly man discovered a tomb and sent people to explore it. Most of the old collections, including the Wuju ring, were discovered in this very tomb. Shu asked the location of these ruins. For ruins of this scale, this must have been a spiritual cultivation era, full of spiritual energy. There was most likely something else hidden beneath the ground, and perhaps it would help the young man in his cultivation. It just so happened that while exploring the tomb, his subordinates were foolish and triggered a mechanism, causing it to self-destruct and collapse. So Bai Shu won't be able to see it in person. But if the red-eyed boy needed it so badly, Gu Wen could try to find the rest of the relics for him. The young man finds it funny that a superpower researcher wants to help him practice. Gu Wen says he doesn't know what a long and winding story it is. When the old man was young, he was very obsessed with power and money, and he thought that with absolute power and superpowers, he could have both. But after thoroughly researching superpowers, Lao Chen realized that superpowers had huge disadvantages. This seemingly immense power like Mac destroys the human mind. Scientists have tried to do something about it, to correct it somehow. But Gu Wen had no idea that looking into the abyss had long since sunk into its depths, like a tormented soul caught in the snare of darkness that it had longed to comprehend. The power of superhuman abilities far exceeds that of ordinary people. And the elderly man is afraid that the same naive and reckless will repeat the same mistakes, so he secretly studied ancient practices. It turns out that creating superpowers is creating immortals that can become possessed by evil spirits. I dare not ask anything in return from my dear friend. Being able to help you is a blessing to my Gu family. Well, if you, my dear, could teach me the art of innocence and brilliance, I would entrust my family's future to you alone, my dear friend. Sincerely, Gu Wen informs this to Bai Shu. The red-eyed youth turned to leave, saying that only those who had discovered ancient religions could discuss terms. Wang Jin Hall. A man sits alone in the middle of the entire trashed hall. An overjoyed Chen Hu visited him and wanted to ask about the idiot, if his father had taught him a lesson for him. Seeing the devastation, Hu fell silent, starting to think about what had happened and what kind of gang this old thing had gotten involved with again. Because of the mutilated face, the son didn't recognize his own father. The father of the Chen family prescribed slaps to his son, calling him a useless piece of shit who is always giving him trouble. The pathetic little boy doesn't understand why his daddy hit him. Angry dad yells to get out of sight. While the guards were smashing the entire Wangjin Hall, Tian Yu sat on the chair and asked how the bastard dared to insult the Lord. God damn it! What a cocky bastard you are! You chose to fight the wrong person, and of all people, it was Li Jiang that you messed with. Shouts the bastard, beaten to the point of breaking bones, to the brat. Ren Wukong asks young master to calm down. Now that Wang Jin has provoked the Gu family, it's useless to keep angering young master. Their top priority now is to entertain the esteemed guests from the east. Threatening with his fist, Head Chen tells him to hurry up. If the subordinate screws up again, he will make him regret being born. Next day, Yajun University. Walking on the balcony of the university building, Ji Qi, holding Li Jian's hand, asks what they talked about last night with Mr. Gu. She noticed that Gu Wenya had no face when he left, but when he came out to see her off, he was glowing with joy. Bai Shu said they discussed some deals. Sis thought about Li Jian and Gu Tianren getting married. This thought worried her to no end. Without letting her brother know what she was thinking, she screams that there is no such thing. Shu didn't understand her reason for objecting. After all, there was nothing wrong with his deals. Blushing with embarrassment, the girl tells Li Jian that he can't leave her and her mom. The young man doesn't quite know what she means. Bai Shu is called out by the name of the body's owner, Li Jian. The formidable Chen Hu is heading towards him, but already with one puppy behind him. Rumors spread around the university that Li Jian beat up Hu because of his shallowness. People assume that he now wants to settle the score with him because of what happened. The people around him are waiting for the show. With all seriousness in their faces, they tore towards Shu, and they fell on their knees before him, begging for forgiveness because they were wrong. Now at Yajun University, Li Jian will have the last word. The guys standing nearby are alarmed by the behavior of the principal's son. Scared, they decide not to provoke Li Jian in the future. As they left, Bai Shu told them to get lost and not to go near him and Ji Qi again. They obeyed his order. The girl's cell phone vibrated in her pocket. With a calm face, she looks at the notice that has arrived. But the calm was replaced by wariness. Brother noticed the change in Ji Qi's facial expression and asked about it. She assured him that everything was fine and they went on to their pairs. But in reality, Dongfang Yanshu texted her saying he missed her and invited her to his place on his day off. A few days later, a sunny Saturday, Yajun University. 3 boys are discussing Bai Shu, who is sitting upstairs. One asks them to keep their voices down because the red-eyed boy is now backed up by Cheng Hu, the university's former bully. Sitting on the chipped concrete, Shu emits spiritual energy. It's directed at the 3 fools who debated him. The boys were about to leave, but something stopped them. They started to kneel down. Something restrained them. One of them suddenly felt cold, and the other started accusing his buddy of insulting Li Jian, who had heard everything. Bai Shu opened his eyes. A bunch of unremarkable people who can't stand the aura that the young man is involuntarily emitting. The 3 boys are sitting in a frog's pose, shivering from the cold. It was as if Shu had let go of the threads of aura that bound these boys' bodies. They began to fall to the ground at once. They were very scared because they didn't even realize what had happened. They looked behind the back of the red-haired guy in their company. The guys are very tense. For behind them, calmly meditating, a red-eyed boy gazed into their eyes. Running farther away from the place, one of them apologized for his words. The 7th level of key refining. The aura of the realm is very thin, and being able to cultivate to this level is the limit. It's a pity that they don't know when Grandpa Gu will find a place full of spiritual energy to make a breakthrough in foundation cultivation. On the phone, he reaches out to Aunt Willow. The aunt informs Li Jian that Ji Chengqian has just come home and taken Ji Qi away. The high-rise building where the girl is now located, a gray-haired man in an austere suit addresses his daughter, calling her a good little smart girl. He asks her to go faster. Ji Qi agrees to help him, on the condition that after that they are no longer father and daughter. The man asks Xiao Qi not to be so callous. He wanted to put his hand on her shoulder, but fought it off. Cheng Tian promises never to interfere in their lives again, saying beforehand that he doesn't throw words to the wind. He reported that they had arrived at the site. Ji Qi, accompanied by her father, entered the large room where some brunette man was waiting for her. The guy with a glass of wine turns to the girl and says they haven't seen each other in a while. A multi-story building. Drunken Dragon Hotel. Bai Shu is stopped by hotel staff, informing him that the establishment is temporarily closed. He asks where Ji Qi is. The man realized that the girl the red-eyed youth was talking about had been invited by the Oriental Lord to his luxurious banquet. They can't let this guy bother the Oriental Lord. The man lies to Bai Shu about not knowing who he's talking about. The Drunken Dragon Hotel is not a place where anyone can break in. He urges the guy to leave the grounds as soon as possible. Angry at what he's heard, Shu asks his buddy to step back. The employees of the establishment are aggressive. Since the guy doesn't understand the words, they will talk differently. Surrounding the red-eyed boy, they had already swooped down with their clubs, already swinging and preparing to stab him in the back. But they couldn't even come close to hitting the young man. They noticed the defensive superpowers. Their attempt turns out to be torture for them because Shu doesn't spare anyone. In an instant, they scattered like skittles in different directions. The head of their gang sits on his ass in fear and asks what the young man wants. He informs him that the Drunken Dragon Hotel is booked by an Eastern family tonight and warns the lad that if he goes in there, he won't get away with it easily. The red-eyed youth repeats his question about Ji Qi's whereabouts again. The head of the Chen family, accompanied by Ren Wukong, came out and spoke to the man. "Why are you making a fuss? If you disturb our esteemed guests, it won't be difficult for me to throw you out of here in fear." A hotel employee points the finger at Bai Shu, blaming him for the sensational problems. Chen didn't realize who the young man was, calling him a wild guy who dared to make a mess on his property. He orders someone to throw him into a pool of snakes for them to feast on. Ren Wukong is floored by his host's behavior because he realizes the range of problems to come. A subordinate whispers in the boss's ear that Li Jian is in front of him. Dropping his cigar, the miserable man realized the gist of what was happening. After realizing everything, he began to make nice with Bai Shu. "My goodness, it's Li Jian, my brother. I confess I didn't recognize you at first. I apologize profusely. So, what brings you to my humble Drunken Dragon Hotel? You seem to be in a good mood." The red-eyed youth repeated his question about Ji Qi once again. Man Chen asked Ren Wukong about this girl. The man explained that the Eastern Lord had invited her, and she was with Li Jian. The situation is even worse than the Chen family boss imagined. With a broad smile on his face, the jerk guides the guest forward to the hotel, ordering his subordinates to take his brother Li to Miss Qi, who is now with her friends in a luxurious suite. The battered employees obey their boss. Ren Wukong warns the Lord that if he lets Li Jian in, the Eastern Lord will definitely not forgive them so easily. There was nothing left for him to do. If they didn't let Ji Qi's brother in, there would be trouble with the Gu family. Boss Chen tells Wukong to go tell everything to the Gu family, at least to gain their favor. Ren obeys without question.
Pet the cat.